everyone and welcome again to RC Fun&Games. I am Ryan and today we're going to be having a look at this awesome new tow truck crane kit from Injora. Now before I jump into the garage so we can get it installed, I just want to mention it is only compatible with the Traxxas Trx4m original chassis rails and the universal LCG chassis from Injora. Besides that, it is made to fit the IR40 and the IR60 body. And as you can see, the kit comprises of these two packages. You get the 7 kilo 360 degree servo. Besides that, you get the crane kit inside this packet. So let's get in the garage. Let's see exactly what it takes to get all this assembled, installed on the IR40, and of course, how to get it to work with the 6-channel transmitter from Injora. Okay, so now that we're in the garage, let's grab this crane kit. Let's get this thing open and assembled so we can see exactly what it looks like before we start stripping the IR40. And like always, you can see how nicely everything comes packaged from Injora, which is awesome because nothing is going to be scratched as everything is individually packaged in its own little packet. And all the hardware is included, the drum, the rope for the winch, and even a set of instructions to make the installation a little bit easier. So let's get stuck in assembling this so we can then strip the truck and get it installed. So let's start by removing the smallest front piece of the crane. And according to the instructions, you were supposed to install this, but it's already installed. So let's move on to the second part. And from what I can tell, it's already installed as well. So they're making this really easy for us to do the installation. Now moving on to the second stage of the instructions, they tell you to grab this one. So let's get this one out. Let's open up the package with the rope. And to get this little part installed onto here, you are going to be using the M1x6. Now always make sure you get all 4 in before you start tightening them down. Now another thing I recommend is making sure you put a little drop of Loctite on all your screws, as everything just goes directly into aluminium. Okay, so now that we've got that on, let's grab our D-ring and let's get that installed. And to do that, you're going to be using the M1x6. And just like I mentioned before, make sure you use a bit of Loctite on all these screws. These things do like to come loose. Okay, so now that we've got this one assembled and ready, let's grab the servo mount. Let's get the servo installed onto this. And before I install this servo, just check out this awesome 7 kilogram 360 degree winch. Pretty cool, nice and beefy. So let's get this one installed onto here. The hardware we're going to be using is the M2.5x6. And like always, I recommend a little bit of Loctite. So let's throw our little bushing in place. Now let's grab the winch drum and the winch rope. Let's get that installed. And I'm guessing you just have to make a little stopper knot so it can't run away. And to do that, I'm just going to do a double granny knot. Make sure you get it as near as you can to the end of the rope. I'm even going to cut the excess off and just give it a little touch of heat. Okay, as you can see, that's not going to be coming loose. And as you can see, it's gone pretty well hidden away in there. Now let's get the drum and rope onto the servo. Don't forget to drop of Loctite on this one. You don't have to over tighten it, just use that Loctite and snug it up tight so it's got a nice grab. Now we grab the first two pieces and we're going to install them together, sliding it all the way down to the bottom and using the two bottom holes. And the hardware we're going to be using is the M2x4. Don't forget your Loctite. I know I keep mentioning it, but it is really important. You don't want this thing falling apart when you're out on the trail. Now, like I've mentioned before, never tighten them until you've got all 4 in place. And definitely don't over tighten these, as they just go into soft aluminium. Okay, so now that we've got that piece done, now we're going to grab the section with the D-ring and we're going to install that in here on the front hole, using the same hardware as the front piece. Okay, so now that we've got all that installed, let's grab our servo. That's going to go on this end piece over here, but before I do that, I'm quickly going to throw my hook onto the end of the rope, and to do that you're going to need the M1x6, and you're also going to need one of the tiny little nuts. Okay, so now that I've got the bolt through, I'm just going to get my rope tied onto here. Okay, so as you can all see, I did a little bowline knot. Now, I only did this because it keeps the strength of the rope, and of course it will be a lot easier to remove when I want to remove it. And the hardware we're going to be using is the M2x6. Okay, so now that we've got all that installed, let's just throw our rope over the top. Now the only thing left to do is install this last little piece. And if I'm not mistaken, it goes right here in the back behind the servo to support it. And the hardware we're going to be using to install this piece is the M2.5x6. Okay, so as we can see, it wasn't difficult to put it together, just takes a bit of patience. The instructions are really good, so if my video is not helpful, you can always just go by the instructions, but I always think it's worth making a video showing exactly how a product goes together. Okay, so now that I've got it all assembled and ready to install, it's time to grab the IR40, and I need to get rid of all these accessories on the back and this back rail. So let me get on with that. Okay, so now that I've removed the chassis brace, I've also moved all my electronics around because they were not going to fit the way I had them. So I've moved my receiver to the back, I've got my Roveron ECU over here in the front, and I've put my switch just on the side over here. Now, I believe we can grab the crane and we should be able to install it. I'm going to try and get my wiring to go underneath it. Now we're going to be using the M2.5x6 for this. Okay, so now if I put it over here, I noticed that the body is catching on the crane. So I'm going to try and remove these 2 screws over here and this one, and try and use this on the end over here. Let's see how that goes. Okay, so now that I've got them all installed, let's just see. Yes, it clears the body completely. So if you don't want it catching on your body, use the second screw and just remove the upper little screw. It doesn't need it anyway, as these will all be holding it central and not allowing it to rotate anyway. Okay, another thing I want to point out is I didn't use the spacers on the side of the mount over here. It was a tight fit, so I couldn't see the purpose of putting them, but if you've got a gap, you can always use them. Now besides that, I also ended up moving the location of this pole with the runner in the middle. I moved it to the last hole so that the rope could sit nicely and run smoothly through that runner. Okay, so now that I've explained everything I've moved around, I am going to take the servo and I'm going to plug it in. And I'm going to be using port number 5. Okay, so now that I've got it all plugged in, I just want to show you I'm using port number 5. And that means I'll be using this dial right over here to control the winch to go in and out. Now before I do some testing, let me get my wiring tidied up. Okay, so now that I've got all the wiring tidied up, it's time to throw a battery in to see if it works. And of course, I'll take it onto the backyard course and we'll do a little bit of testing with this system to see how capable it is and if it can actually tow a vehicle behind the rig. Now I'm going to be running a little 3S Tattoo battery. This is a 300 AMH. As I'm limited on spacing here, these batteries are great and they give you about 15 minutes runtime with the Roverin system. Okay, so now that I've got it plugged in, I'm going to turn on the controller, hit the button. Okay, the body closes up nicely. As you can see, I've already put my fuel cans back in the back. It actually looks quite tidy, I can't complain. There's a few wires sticking out the side here, but it's as good as I can get it. Now, let's just check if the system operates. And like I mentioned, I put it on channel number 5. So I'm just going to turn the knob. Yep, that works perfectly. Back to center, it stops. And if I turn it the other way, it should reel in. There you are. Okay, so that definitely works. Okay, so now that we know that everything is working, it's time to take it out onto the backyard course and go and do a couple of tests. I'm going to do 3 different types of tests. I'm going to do a power test. I'm then also going to test if I can actually save a vehicle by rolling it back onto its wheels. And besides that, we'll also hitch a truck to the back and see if we can actually tow it behind the rig. Now, before I leave you all with the testing footage, I just want to say if you enjoyed this content, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Okay, so the first test is going to be a power test and we're going to check if it actually can lift this Unimog. This thing weighs around 650 to 750 grams and it's a good test to see how powerful that servo is. So let's start reeling in. And as we can see, it's got plenty of power. I've only got the winch pulling half power right now, and it's easily picking it up. Let's give it a bit more power. As we can see, that was easy work for the winch. Just pull it up a little bit more. Yeah, it's like it doesn't even exist. Now let's go back down. Okay, now let's move on to test number 2. Okay, so now we're going to do the second test, which is a real life test. Let's just say the Unimog rolled over and we had to send out the wrecker to go and save it. Let's see if we can roll it back onto its wheels. Start giving it some power. So far, I've got to say, I'm really impressed with this tow truck crane system. It's performing extremely well. Now, I've got one test left to do. I want to see if we can actually tow a rig behind the truck. Okay, so now that we've got it all set up, I'm going to winch it in and I'm going to lift the front wheels and then we're going to try and tow the rig away and see if it actually works. As you can see, I've put the Unimog in freewheel. That's why I'm using this Unimog. Okay. So after doing my 3 different tests, I've got to say I'm pretty impressed with the overall performance from this system. It was easy to install, it has plenty of power, it can roll the vehicle back onto its wheels and even tow it out of some really bad terrain. So my opinion is, if you're just a big kid like me, definitely grab one of these, because I haven't had this much fun since I've unboxed the rctowkit 6x6. Now before I run away, I just want to say a massive thank you to Injora for sending out this tow truck crane kit. It is an awesome system, and thank you so much for continuously making amazing fun products for all of us RC enthusiasts. Now until the next video everyone, happy trails!